Hi, this is Sean Hafer, and in this tutorial, we are going to be creating this short little clip here, utilizing a photo, some text animators, a couple other effects, some noise, and bulge, and the Lumetri color panel, and we'll create something like this. So I'll go ahead and close this up and we'll get started here in After Effects. So what I'm going to do first is I've got two files I'm going to import. So let's go ahead and import those. File, import file. And I've got these on my desktop. So let me see what I've got here. Old TV and spooky sound. So I'm going to shift select both of those and bring them in to After Effects. Great. So we've got this old TV PNG and our little MP3. So if we want to check that out, we can double click it. All right, so that's about 6 seconds long, and we will go ahead and we'll put some reverb on there and spooky it up even a little more here in a minute. In this tutorial, we're going to use a lot of nested comps. So if you're not sure what nested comps are, you'll really get the hang of it by the end of this. So I'm going to start with a new composition, and we're going to call this one our comp quote. So our quote. And that seems fine. 1287.20. Let's do 10 seconds. And we will hit OK. That looks great. Now, inside of this is where we're going to put our little quote, the absolutely terrifying, and then from the New York Times. So I'm going to go ahead and select my text tool. And let me go into my character tool, my paragraph down here, make sure I'm in centered, justified. And I'm going to go to my character tab. Let's pick Baskerville Display PT. We're going to use regular. Now, if you don't have that font, it is an Adobe font. So if you go add Adobe Fonts, click on that little thing, your Adobe will pop up here. It'll take you to your Adobe Fonts. You can look up Baskerville and just grab your Baskerville PT, and then you'll just click Activate Fonts here. I've already got mine activated, so it'll download them and get those in there for you. So I've got that in here. I'm going to go ahead and click in the center here with my text tool, or near the center, and type in quotation mark, absolutely. Then go down, hit enter, and terrifying. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. So I'm going to select everything, and let's bring that size up. I don't know, let's go to about 120. And that looks all right. So we've got that starting to happen. Let's get a little bit more space in here. I'm going to put one space in front of, see, 1, 2, just do a little faux letter spacing here with my space bar. And I'm going to actually select terrifying, and let's crank that up a little bit. Give it a little space. Actually, that looks a lot better. Okay, that looks good. So we'll do, what am I at here? We are at, with terrifying selected, I went with 128, and I've got my spacing for everything. Let's look at that, our line spacing. We're at about a 111. I think we can make that 115. That looks good. And now let's maybe a little bit spread out there. So maybe like negative 12, something like that. Okay, that looks okay. And on that type, let's go ahead and click our color here. And we don't want to go a super bright white. So let's just bring it down to maybe 95%. All right, that's good. And let's go ahead and align that up. So we can just select that. I'm going to go back to my selection tool, click on this, and let's go to our, actually, let me get back over into my default here. There we go, default. Let's make sure that's the same. Reset to save layout. Cool. So now if I go to my Align tab, I can go ahead and center this up vertically and horizontally. All right. Now let's make these quotation marks a little spookier. So let's make them a nice dark red. So I'll go back to my text tool and I will grab that, click on my color, come up here to red, and let's bring it down a little darker so it's not super bright. So maybe something like that. So 18000 on the RGB and hit OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and just select this one, come back over here, use my eyedropper tool and just grab that red since I know it's the same. Great. So that's absolutely terrifying. Now what we want to do, we're going to have this come in, fade in absolutely, fade in terrifying. Now we could do this as two separate lines and then bring that in, as two separate layers and offset the opacity keyframes, but we're going to use a type animator or a text animator on this. There are some presets, so you could come over here to effects and presets and go down to animation presets and text, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of these. So if we came in animate in, there is fade up and flip, fade in from bottom, fade in with a twist. So there's a whole bunch of these that you can check these out if you want to. But I'm going to go ahead and create a new one just so we can see how that works. So if we've got this selected, we come down, roll down to our text here, and we are going to go into our source text, and then right above there is that animate. So I'm going to go ahead, click that arrow, and add an opacity. So now you can see that creates a animator 1. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, hit enter, and name that fade up. You'll want to name these so that once you get multiples, you can easily know what to jump to and adjust. But we're just going to use this one for this. So we've got our fade up, and you can see we've got a range selector, and we've got a start, an end, and an offset, and the opacity. So this opacity, this down here, whatever this is, whether it's position, opacity, scale, this is what you want to set it at to bring it out of. So if I bring this down to 0, right? Now all of our words are not there. But if I scrub the start now, you can see that absolutely terrifying starts to appear. And basically that range selector is just jumping letter to letter and bringing that in. So what I'm going to do is come in here. Let's go to 1 second. And on that start, so again, I've got my opacity down at 0. And let's go ahead and set a keyframe with our start at 0. We'll move forward about, I don't know, let's go to 3 seconds, maybe 3.5. And let's set this to 100. And I'm going to go ahead and grab both of those keyframes and hit my F9 for my easy ease. You could also right click, go to keyframe assistant, and go up here to easy ease as well. And we can tell those are eased because they're now the hourglass instead of the little diamond. All right, now let's take a look at this real quick. All right, so that's okay. I mean, the coming in letter by letter, but we can do some different things with this. So let's look at our options here. I'm going to pull down my advanced tab, and now we can see units percentage. So you can do percentage or index. That would be per letter broken down, but we're going to leave it at percentage. But instead of characters, let's go ahead and do lines. So now that'll animate absolutely terrifying. That's more what we want. So I think that's great. We'll have that happen here, and I think that'll be all we need on this one. So we can come up. Let's just roll that up. So now we've got absolutely terrifying fading in. Great. Now let's just put in that little New York Times sort of tagline below. So go back to our text tool, and I'm going to go ahead, keep that Baskerville display. That's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my red color, and we'll hit that, hit OK. Again, type right here in the center, and let's type the New York Times. And I'm going to select all of that. And let's make sure that that also is on our centered. That's great. Go back to our character and we will bring that down. I don't know, something like, let's try 60. We can actually put a little, let's pop a little hyphen in there. Okay, cool. So with this here, we've got that. Let's move forward so we can see our absolutely terrifying. So I accidentally changed the color of my type here. Let's get rid of that. Let's go back into here and get that back. Let's have that selected when I went there. Okay, that's fine. So we've got this absolutely terrifying and the New York Times. So going back to my selection tool, and that might be a little big. So let's take that. Let's go to 48. Okay, and we will center that up by using our align tool. And let's just nestle it in here a little bit. Okay, so we've got that set up. So the New York Times, that could be, we could just do a fade in. We could do another animator, or let's see if there's a preset we can just use to show how that works. So again, I'm going to go over to effects and presets, animation presets, fade up words, and we'll grab that, just drop it on New York Times, and that'll start that where our playhead was. So we were right past our absolutely terrifying. We can always move these keyframes, and let's see what that does. All right, so that's a little jerky for me, but let's see if we can adjust that a little. So I'm going to come in here, New York Times, and let's drag that below just so they're in order. Boom, boom. And let's grab this text, roll it down, see where our keyframes are. So in the animator, just like we did before, it looks like we've got our opacity at 0 and at start 0 to 100. Now we could do our easy ease on this, but let's look at what our options in here in our animator are. So if I go to my advanced tab, we can see here that it's based on words. That's fine. Mode, add, amount 100. Now what we could do is let's try a different shape. So if we come in here and go into a ramp up, now we can see when it hits it, it's a little more of a fade up. Okay, I like that, but it's starting a little more, oh, it's already there a little too much. So what we can do is right here, let's see how we can adjust this. So if we go to our end and put that right at the beginning as well, what we can do is let's start our end maybe a few frames after and give it a couple keyframes. And we will have that animated as up 0 to 100 as well. Let's see how that feels. Okay, and I'm going to take them and separate them a little more. Okay, that feels good. That's got a nice, more of a fade up. That's a little spookier. All right, cool. So let's keep that there. That seems great. And we've got that, and our comp quote has those in it. So let's create another composition. So we are going to composition new comp, and we will call this one sound effects. So I'll just go do SFX. Everything's fine. 10 seconds. And what we'll do, let's bring in our spooky sound, drop that in here. Let's take a listen to that. Okay, so that's at about 6 seconds. Now what I want to do, I'm going to add a little audio effect on this to make it sound a little spookier even. So we're going to use a reverb. So a reverb, if we go up to effect, select that sound, go to effect, audio, and here is reverb. Now, what a reverb does, it simulates like a large room. So where an echo actually repeats what you hear because the sound bounces off something and it bounces back to you and you hear it echoing. A reverb is just that big spacious sound you get, like if you're in a large, like a cathedral or in a large open basketball auditorium or something. So when we come in here, we can check out what we've got here. So we've got reverb time and we've got dry out and wet out. So these two, this is the balance of before you have any effect, that's your dry out. And then the wet out is how much of it, of the affected comes out. So I'm going to take that up to maybe like almost close to 90. See what it sounds like. Okay, now that's starting to add. I'm going to bring the reverb time up even more. So let's really see how this could become really big. So that I think is sounding really good, but since our sound as well. So what we want to do, let's go ahead and get rid of this reverb. Go back to our project so we can see what we've got over here. So I'm going to create another composition now, and we'll call this title. And that is all fine. And let's go ahead and now drag in our quote and drag in our sound effect. So now we've got okay, and then that quick sort of delay. Now I want to have a much longer delay. So what I can do, since this sound effects has got, that's a comp, we can go ahead and add our effect reverb to the comp. So what's nice is that comp's 10 seconds, so it has the room to fade out for us. So now if I crank my reverb time up, and then I've got my wet out, crank that up, and get some more decay. Now let's see how that sounds. All right, so see how we get that nice long decay. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit, maybe bring my reverb time down just a little bit. But that's where if your sound, if you need your delay or your echo or your reverb to go past that clip, you need to put it in a comp that's longer than the clip and then put your effects on the comp. So that's a good thing to remember. Okay, so we've got both of those. They're in here. And let's just see how they feel together. Great. Okay, I think that's good. So now what we'll do is let's see what else we need. So now let's create another comp. Let me go back to my project and we will do another comp for our old TV. So let's go ahead and new comp, and let's make this one 15 seconds. And I'm going to call this old TV. All right, hit that. Everything's good there. Okay. And let's drag in our old TV and line that up there. So we're on frame 1. Okay, so what we want to do is make this look even older, right? And we also want to cut out the screen so that we can have our quote come up from behind. We also then want to have another version of the screen with our reflections on it that we can put above our quote so it looks like it's still getting those reflections in our screen. So I'm going to zoom in a little. And first, let's create a mask so that we can use that for cutting out our thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my pen tool. I've got old TV selected. Start up here at the top. And I'm just going to draw a quick mask on here. I'm going to the inside of the little bevel there. And if you want to take a little more time than me, that is totally fine. I'm just trying to get through. Keep that shadow in there, hopefully. Come on up here. And let's close it out. Okay, great. So I think that's pretty close. I'm not going to worry too much about it. So there's our mask. Now, this one, let's go ahead and make a duplicate. So I'm just going to do Command or Control D, duplicate that layer. And I'm going to hide the top one. And let's look at our bottom one. And this will be we want to have the TV in this one. So let's go ahead and roll down here, go to our masks, and you can just hit M as well. And we'll bring your masks up. And then let's go ahead and click inverted. So now we can see we've got our hole cut in our mask there. And so with our duplicate up here, now if we turn that back on, we've got our screen back. So our duplicate, let's go ahead and change the name. So I'll select it, hit enter, and then we'll type TV screen. All right. So let's get this looking like an old TV. So let's go in, let's use our Lumetri color panel for this. We'll go again to Effect, got it selected, go down to Color Correction, and grab Lumetri. You'll see all of our options over here. We're just going to grab one of the creative presets. So you can roll down here under Look. Let's do SL. See what might be a good one. Noir. I don't know, Nouvelle. Let's try that. Yeah, that looks good. So that was SL Noir Nouvelle. And if you wanted to, you can come in here and maybe give it a little more, little other options. So we could say, let's go back to our basic corrections, and maybe we want to give it a little bit of contrast, just to pump that up a little. Let's see what our shadows are looking like. Maybe a little something there. So yeah, you can do your adjustments there. And I kind of probably want the same thing on my TV screen here. So what I can do, I'm just going to go ahead and select that there, Control C, and then select TV screen and Control V. And you can see that just pasted that effect right onto there. It's the same one. All right, so we've got that, but we want this to be a lot darker. Really all we want to see is pretty much these reflections. So I'm going to go ahead and select my TV screen, go up to Effects, and let's just grab a level. So inside Color Correction, we've got Levels. And let's see what we can do here. Let me pull this over a little, make sure I can see everything. And we want to keep our highlights, but really crush some of that in there. So let's see. There we go. Now we've got our reflections, but we don't have as much of that glare. I'm going to keep a little of that in there. I think that looks pretty good. And that looks good there. All right. Now let's bring in one of our comps. So let's go back to our project and bring in our title comp. So this has our sound and it has our title in there. So let's go ahead. I'm going to turn off this one here for a second. Let's move forward a little. Okay, absolutely terrifying. So now we can look at this comp and let's go down to its scale, hit S, and let's scale that down because that's going to be inside here. And hit V to get my selection tool. Let's bring it in there. Get our rotation, kind of map it up. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Let's see how that feels. Really terrifying. Okay, it's a little big still, or we can maybe just move it up a little. So back to V. All right, absolutely terrifying, the New York Times. Great. So maybe right there. Now, another thing that might be fun to do on this, let's put a little bit of a warp because it's got that curved screen. So I'm going to go up here. So we've got title. And one thing, let's go up and say, we're going to put an effect and distort and bulge. Let's use a bulge. Okay, so let's roll that down. And we can look here to our effects there, or we can use it up here. So what we want to do is expand our horizontal radius and our vertical radius. Okay, and we need that horizontal to go out even further. We don't want it too crazy, but just a little bit. And then we can adjust that bulge height too. So we could come in here and just give it a little bit of a curve. All right, I think that's good. So it's got a little bit of that. And let's just scale that up a little. All right, so we want to scale this in a little bit. So since we're already at 65, I've got my scale showing. Let's go ahead and we'll end at 65. So let's have that end kind of right there as New York Times comes up. Maybe that's still a little too big. I'm going to bring it down maybe to 60. And set a keyframe. That feels a little better on the screen. And then let's come all the way down to 1 and set our scale, not much, maybe down to 55. Let's see how that feels. Great. So that gives us a little bit of movement there. And then what we'll do as well is let's go ahead and fade this out. So if you've got your scale here, hit Shift and T for your opacity, and then we'll have our opacity there as well. And now let's start right around the same time here, or a little before. Let's start fading it out. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my opacity at 100, and then move forward maybe about 2 seconds. And let's fade that out. And again, all these keyframes, you can grab them. Just our old friend, the Easy Ease. Let's see how that feels. Great. All right, so we've got that. Now let's get our screen back on top of this. So I'm going to move here so I can see my type in there. Let's go to our TV screen. And what we want to do, hit your switches modes so that you can see your modes, right? So we want to make sure we've got our blending mode here. And on this, let's go to add. Make sure we turn it back on. So there we go. So we've got a little additive, and we can go ahead and hit our opacity on that T and just see if we want to blend that a little more, a little less. So see where you feel good, where you want it in there. Now, another thing I want to add on here, let's add a little noise. So I'm going to go into here, TV screen, effect. Let's add noise, noise and grain, and let's add noise. And if we look at that, we've got amount of noise. We can start cranking that up. Let's see what we've got there. Now, by default, it'll have a color noise. So if I zoom in here, you can see it's a color noise. I'm going to go ahead and turn that, unclip that so it becomes a black and white. And just bring that up maybe about 26%, 25%. Let's see how that feels. Yeah, so now we've got that on there. That's overlaying on top of our type. I think our type could maybe still be a little lower in its opacity. So let's see where we're at here. So we look at title as a whole. We've got it starting at 100 here. So let's get to that keyframe. And let's bring it maybe 75. That feels a little more blended in. Okay, great. And so now we've got that sort of reflection on top, that noise on top, and it feels a little more like it's all together. Now, if we wanted to give the whole comp, we could give the whole thing a little more noise after, and maybe we'll do that here in a second. So there we go. We've got absolutely terrifying. We've got everything there. Looks good. And it's out. So we're done at about 10 seconds. So we could go ahead and cut this down to there. So let's say if we go here, right, we'll go to our 10-second spot, hit our in, right? Remember, in brings the preview range down there, and then we could go ahead and right click, trim comp to work area. So now we've got that as a 10-second comp as well. So let's roll those up. I think that's all looking okay. And let's go back to our project. So now we've got title. So old TV has title inside of it, right? Quote or title has quote and SFX. So what's nice about these is now we can, when we have multiple pieces, when you pre-comp them or pre-compose them, put them in a composition together, then you can affect that composition as well. So let's do one more comp. So I'm going to come back out. Let's go to our old TV is kind of where there, and let's do a new comp called final. I'm going to click my little comp button here. We'll call this our final. Output. That looks good. 15. I think we can just do 10. And we'll do that. Hit OK. 10.00. That would have been 10 frames if I wouldn't have done that. There we go. And now we can drag our old TV into that, right? So now we've got that. I want to do a couple things here. So one thing, let's add a little shake to the camera. So we'll scale this up. Let's hit our T for scale. We're going to scale the entire old TV comp up. Maybe I hit the wrong one. S for scale. There we go. So maybe 105%. Let's see if that'll work. Okay. And now what I want to do is let's hit our position track, hit P for position. And I'm going to add an expression here, a wiggle expression. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option or Alt, and click on my little stopwatch, and you can see it opens the expression area. So I'm going to just select this and start typing wiggle. There it is right there. And we want the wiggle with the 2 parentheses. Double click it. And that gives us a little sort of what we need. So we need to put a couple things in that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a 2, 2. That's your frequency and then your amount of wiggle. So you just kind of get used to feeling. Right, so now we've got a little bit of that little shake going on. A little spookier. Okay, and so maybe at the end, let's think some other things we can do here. Let's go ahead and real quick, let's do a little opacity. So we'll do T, and let's fade this one out. Start almost near the end here, and then let's get down to 0. See how that feels. And then we can F9 those. And what I'm going to do too, so let's F9 easy ease. And real quick, let's go to our graph editor and select those opacity. And I'm going to pull those out a little there. So let's get this so it's got a nice ease out on that fade. Nice, that feels good. Okay, it's got a little more drama to it. All right, and if we come back here, let's go back to our keyframes. So let's see what else we can do here. Let's go up to layer. My old TV selected, effect. And see our noise. What do we got here? Noise and grain. We could do another noise if we wanted. We could try and see what that looks like. So let's do a noise. And again, turn off the color noise. Or maybe here, well, no, that's fine. Let's turn it off. Just add a little bit everywhere. See how that feels. Zoom in a little so we can see. Yeah, that feels good. So now we've got the not only the static on the TV, now we've got a little noise in our final as well. Okay, so I think that's kind of that. And then our fade out. All right. Well, that is kind of that. There was a lot of stuff in that tutorial, but I hope that helped out. So remember, we had a lot of things with nested comps. We had some masks in there as far as an inverting masks. We did some text animation with text animators. Went out to Adobe Creative Cloud and looked where we could get fonts if we didn't have them installed, and played with some effects like noise and lumetri color and bulge. So that's it for this one, and thanks for watching.